Hello, my elevated listeners, and welcome to the Elevated Executive Podcast. I'm your host, Adriana D'Onofrio, and this is the podcast where high performance meets higher consciousness. Here we explore the art of living and leading with purpose, passion, and power. This is your space to uncover the secrets to success in life and business by doing the inner work. Through candid interviews with industry leaders and transformative stories of personal growth, together we'll dive into the world of manifestation and energy healing and elevated living, because true success starts within. So whether you're looking to deepen your relationships, leave a legacy, or unlock your full potential, you're in the right place. It's time to elevate your mindset, ignite your energy, and step into your highest self. So let's dive right in, because it's time to level up. Hello, my elevated listeners, and welcome back to the Elevated Executive Podcast. Today, we're unpacking one of the most nuanced challenges on the spiritual path on what happens when you're evolving spiritually into the 5D consciousness, but your partner is still living fully in the 3D. This is something that we often embark upon and see. Joining me is the incredible Terrie Christine, an internationally recognized intuitive energy healer, psychic medium, author, and creator of The Power of Clearing Energetic Blocks. For more than a decade, Terrie has helped thousands across the globe identify and release subconscious blocks that keep them stuck in relationships, career, health, and self-worth. Her intuitive gift allows her to tap into your energy field, access the root of your patterns, and help you to unlock powerful transformation. Today, she's helping us explore how spiritual evolution impacts intimate relationships and why being on different frequencies doesn't necessarily mean you're incompatible. So welcome, Terrie, and thank you so much for being here today.
Oh, well, thank you first off for saying yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. You opened that door, so I appreciate you. Thank you.
I'm always ready for a good conversation.
Oh yeah, this is going to be a good one.
So just to kick off, Terrie, will you help us, and for all the listeners out there, of course, because not everyone knows exactly what we mean when we say 5D and 3D. And can you help us define what that means, especially in context of relationships and frequencies?
Mm-hmm. So I can actually give you a scenario.
Great.
Because once I do that, people really understand. So a 3D person can think things like, man, that always happens to me. Or, oh, that's just a coincidence. Or, can't I wish just everything is like not good. It's just not good. And it's just going to take me forever to get there. So that's a 3D person. 5D person is all is safe, right, and good. I am fully rested. I feel amazing. Life is grand. I'm going to meditate and I'm going to manifest the hell out of this. It is mine. I own it, and no one could tell me otherwise. You're being triggered, and that's not me. So what happens is, 3D is the old pattern of how they're saying things are, when in reality it's really not, right? They're saying that, oh, it's a coincidence that I was sitting at the stoplight, that the bus went by and said go to Tahiti when I was just thinking about a vacation and where to go, right? There are no coincidences in this world. That just because you were sitting at that light when that bus went by, like that bus has a route, and you're at that light at that specific time with that bus going by as you were thinking about a vacation. Come on.
That's a good example, actually.
Yes. So there is a big difference. Can someone move from 3D to 5? Absolutely. Can you do it right now? Absolutely. You just have to change the way you think, feel, and know.
Yeah. I think this, and I love that perspective as well, because it's so much of a lot of the time 3D conscious people do have the victim mentality of life is happening to me, because they don't have the consciousness of believing that there is no such thing as a coincidence. Everything is about reality and current, I guess, present reality and circumstances that surround them. They have to see it to believe it rather than believe it to see it, right?
Absolutely. Yes.
Which the 5D consciousness, I guess we are so much more believe it to see it. We want to feel it in our bodies and in our mindsets and in our nervous system and manifest it into becoming.
Absolutely.
So, and you just said this, you can absolutely go from 3D to 5D. And I know because I've
Mhm.
done it. At one point in our lives, we all had our own spiritual awakening, and not everyone is immediately born this amazing, evolved spiritual 5D conscious being. And so
Exactly.
it's completely possible, and everyone goes through this big spiritual awakening. So, what are some real signs that a partner is evolving into a higher consciousness while the other is rooted in the material logical world, and like how, especially in the early days of a spiritual awakening, so to say, when one partner is really starting to kind of just be like, oh, there's another way of living, there's another way of seeing, another
Mm.
way of doing
Mhm.
things, um
Mhm.
and what that kind of brings up within relationships.
Mhm. Yeah, because I do work with a lot of couples, and what I find is one partner is dragging the other one to see me. And then I'm making sense, and then they come back and life starts changing positively for them. So, I do hear that quite a bit, that and it's usually the women more open to alternative ways. And there's nothing wrong with men. They're just, they're taking a little bit longer to come in this direction because they may be more analytical or science driven, things like that. So so this is what it looks like when one partner is starting to evolve into it. They'll start saying like, "Oh, I'm listening to people like Joe Dispenza and Eckhart Tolle and reading books." And then they start saying, "No, this stuff makes sense because the truth always makes sense."
Those were my
And
first
then,
ones.
yes, mine too.
Yeah.
I still listen to Joe. He's amazing. And then you'll find that that evolving partner will start moving into when you come home at work from work, excuse me, that, "Oh, my day was great. Even though my coworker was late, my day was still great," because then they're making sure that everything they're seeing is positive, that it's for them, not against them. And they'll be more open to communicate. They'll say things like, "Oh, I was just triggered by that." That's a common theme, as we're evolving, to share that our childhood stuff, the limiting
Mhm.
beliefs, the subconscious stuff is coming up, and they're saying that, "Hey, I'm having this feeling." But truly, that the more the one communicates their feelings without judgment, you'll hear me say that often, that they're doing their best to share what is going on, how they're interacting, how they want things to change without forcing the other one to change. They're saying, "These are the things that are affecting me, and I'm working on not having that happen," right? They're either going to start meditating, taking longer walks, being out with no shoes on, feeling more connected to Mother Earth, those kind of things. People go, "Oh, that's kind of woo woo ish," or no, not at all. I mean, most of the things I'm saying have been proven. There have been tests shown that if we walk on the ground with no shoes on, you'll see a more energetic connection between the earth and the physical person walking. So it's not as woo woo as people made it out to be,
And
you know?
and for our listeners, I encourage you to go check out Joe Dispenza, who Terry was mentioning before, because it's a very, and I use him a lot and his books a lot to recommend to my clients who are earlier on in their journey, to where it's very science and fact based. And it's a way to
Yeah.
be, have a little bit more branded approach to this lifestyle and this consciousness, I guess, so to say. because it's not very woo woo and it's not super out there. This is science based facts of how the
Mm-hmm.
universe and how it work on an energetic level. Um,
Yes.
so definitely go check out Joe Dispenza. His books are
Yeah.
amazing. You can find him on YouTube. Those
Mhm.
sort of cool things. But this is something that I've also personally experienced, especially in my own journey. And this is one that I definitely want to ask you since you have so much experience with other couples. And I just want to say for the listeners too, I find it so funny that I keep attracting these podcast episodes in around relationships and love because the last guest episode that I just had was around the same thing. So maybe there's a mirror here somewhere.
Funny.
But
Or maybe you're looking for answers.
oh yeah. Well, I'm always looking for answers, and I swear all of my podcast guests usually are some like, and they always do. And this is just proof of 5D consciousness and how the world of the universe works. Is
Hmm.
usually my podcast guests will show up at the right exact time of when I need some
Mm.
type of reflection of whatever the topic is, for sure, or whether it's something
Love it.
that maybe a client is going through that gives me like a spark of something of how I can help someone else as well. So they show up always at the right time. But this is and I love this topic, and the reason why I chose this topic, we chose this topic, and we were like, "Oh, that's it," is because it is. It's something that continues to come up in my relationship and my marriage, and it's an ever evolving thing as you go down your own spiritual journey, and it evolves and advances and becomes even more deeper and higher. But this is the biggest one, especially in the beginning. I was just so afraid of me evolving and growing, and what that meant as far as disconnecting or growing apart or growing further apart away from my partner, because there's so much that I love about my partner and my husband. Of course, he's an amazing father and he really is an amazing husband and provider, and he loves our family and he's a great human being and person with a big heart. But it is, just very different ways of thinking and wavelengths and frequencies and um how we're evolutionizing as for our journey. And like you said, that letting go, you said this earlier, that letting go of control of you can't bring them with you. You have to let them go and let them have their own journey and make their own choice of how to evolve and when to come.
Yep.
But like this feeling of disconnection or outgrowing a partner, is that always a red flag? Is it something you always find? Does it always mean that it's inevitably doomed to fail? Like that, those are all the questions that we all spiritual evolutionizing beings are ended up asking ourselves.
Yeah. So the reality is, and if you want to make it your reality, is that as you shift up, others may shift up or shift out.
Mhm.
So if your relationship already had seriously a mountain of weaknesses,
Mm.
then no matter what you do, you just have to allow yourself to grow within you, right? There could be a spark that gets him to see, or her, gets them to see that things could be different. I personally, actually, it's very interesting. We're talking about this right now. That
We all needed
personally,
it.
yes, yes, we personally experienced that not too long ago, like less than 3 weeks, and that, he shifted like overnight in another direction. And I'm like, what just happened? Right. And the interaction of our energy, because sort of like, well, when you have multiple people together, it could be two, a group is two or more, like your family with children. There's an energy that can be formed that's similar to quantum entanglement, where all these particles, one becomes the strongest particle, and then all the other particles will equal the balance of that strongest particle. So if the husband is at work and really stressed out and nobody's at work but him, the wife can start feeling stressed out and think that's her energy. And she's got a lot going on at work with the kids and all of that, or excuse me, at home and all the kids. And he comes home and he's already like bouncing with chaos. And so is she, because she picked up his energy even from a distance. So that's kind of how quantum entanglement works. And so when he shifted, I said to myself, all right, I have to ground myself now, because that was like a shock. And then I had to reclaim my own energy, because I did pour a lot of my energy into him. And then I said, you know what? He started giving me, well, I'm going to find myself, that kind of stuff. And I said, here's Joe Dispenza. Here, if you're wanting to meditate, here it is. And I just sent him the link. That was it. That was it. His choice, right?
Mm-hmm.
Well, he took off with it.
Ooh.
And he took off. He's fascinated. He's listening to him every day. He's already trying to meditate. He's already going to the retreat in August. I mean, he's already like night and day.
He's even going to a retreat. That's awesome.
Yeah, well, I'm going too, but we talked
fantastic.
about we talked about it. So yes, it was absolutely fantastic, but I had to, and this is the perfect example, I had to let go of any fears. I had to let go of worrying about what's going to happen and trust and know that whatever happens has to happen. I can't control it. I can't beg. I can't, whatever it is. But I planted the seed and I said, if you're truly saying this, then here's something that can guide you. And that's it. And so allowing that to happen and trusting so much. I mean, even with me floating on a cloud, I had to trust so much that if that was the last time I saw him, then, it stung, but that was it. And it took off. And so, yeah, being in that space of gratitude but then it also, and keep in mind, I've worked a massive amount on myself, a massive amount, and I still continue to. I have to in order to be where I am today. And, when you have that happen to you in the position that I am energetically and thinking, man, why didn't I see that? Well, of course, my subconscious is triggering off of his subconscious and, we're all living consciously going, whoa. And that allowed me, instead of being angry, yeah, I was a little bit, but then again, here's how it works. This is exactly how it works. Live in your emotion in that moment. Be angry, frustrated, cry, scream. Yeah, I did all of that. But it lasted less than 12 hours. Not that I wanted it to, not that I controlled it, there was nothing about that other than moving through the energy of that. Then when I got to that grounded space, I said, okay, I need to look into me on my portion of what occurred. And it'll allow me to see how I shifted energy. I know exactly how it happened. I know the moment it happened, but I didn't know at the time. And then sitting back and going, oh, wow. Okay. I get it now. So, and then again, how can I make that better? But even though I'm wanting, because I'm such a giver, wanting to help him, save him, all that, I had to pull in no matter what. Let me tell you, it's literally like being on the raft after the ship goes down. You're hanging onto that raft, but okay, but it's you on the raft and no one else. How can I save myself? And literally is like that. Nobody can understand unless you go through something like that. But it's like when you have a breakup that you are so connected, when you're, going through a divorce and you're like, wow, instead of being angry at the other, it's like, what part of this did I create for this to happen? Because it takes two particles. And so going through that and seeing that, and then just dropping a seed, you do with that seed what you want to. But it clearly told me that the work that I do and how much did you really support it? How much did you really understand it? How much did you really say the things that you were saying that were true or not? And so by planting that little seed, proved everything to himself and to me that he does support what I do 100%. He is moving into that direction like he was suggesting he would. Just take some a little bit longer, right? Now, that was my personal situation. It may not be the person who's listening or several of the people that are listening, and so, because their weakness may be so weak that there's a massive crack in the relationship that even if you pour cement in it, it still may not fill up, right? That you have to focus on you and what you did energetically for everything to kind of become a washing machine, and then putting your life raft on. How much do you love yourself? It doesn't mean that you're or what's the word, like scorned, or you don't have to raise your voice. All you have to do is smile.
Yeah. I would
Pretty
I
much.
would like to say also for the listeners, because that, I mean, that's so amazing too, and this is everyone's dream, to where you kind of just give them the hints and the breadcrumbs, and they kind of just take it and go with
Hmm.
it, and that's exactly what we
Yeah.
all, kind of want, because
Hope. Yeah.
it is ultimately the goal to be aligned in this way, in this mindset, for sure. But that's also, it's not, and in my case specifically, like, I could speak to my relationship, it's almost not so much even like a crack in the foundation of the relationship that's so big. It's that it's almost looking at it from the crack in his foundation of his relationship with himself, and his own fear and his own things is so
Yep.
big from his own childhood wounds and his own
Yep.
experience through life, that that's something that
Yep.
he has to go through for himself. And
Yep.
for me specifically, it was also a lot about, my husband is from Italy, from a very different culture and very different, old school mindsets and very different ways of thinking and being. And it's a very, very different way of thinking in general. And so the progression is definitely slower, and there's more stubbornness and more hard headedness
Mhm.
of I'll do it my way. And so it
Mhm.
wasn't quite of a 12-hour turnaround, but you start to, and you start to even have these, big conversations that, like you said, end up in tears and a blow up or whatever it may be. But then all of a sudden, you start to see the results after the fact. And that's always been something that I've noticed as well. It's like they, even if you were to just kind of lead the breadcrumbs for them to find out their own, they end up picking up more than you think you give them credit for, or you think they actually do.
Yeah, yeah.
Um, But going back to what you were saying earlier, is this is something that came up for me a lot, even in the very beginning of my spiritual awakening, my journey, so to say. And was working with a spiritual energy healer mentor like yourself, actually, at the time, and it almost in like a couples therapy like context, but by myself with her.
Mhm. Mhm.
Because it was very early on. All of this was very new to myself. I wasn't really sure of anything yet. I was working through my own stuff that was coming up, all these things. But that was the biggest thing that I was holding on to, was this idea of having control over the result, or the fact of whether I let the relationship grow apart or not, or being able to have control over whether he actually came along the journey or not, or whether he grew or not. And I just want to say, once you get to that point of, and she said this to me multiple times, and at the time I just couldn't see it, and I didn't want to see it, and I didn't want to accept it, and I didn't want to ever get there. But once you get to that point of surrendering and being
Mhm.
so sure of yourself and your own mindset and your own path of where you're going and your own growth, of being okay with what will be, and whatever happens happens, and as devastating as that would be or could be. I'm married, have been married for 10 years. I have a young son. I mean, it would be awful, god forbid, but it's it's just getting to that point of being able to surrender to God, the divine, your higher power, of, you know, at this point, I truly believe that what is meant for me will be for me. And so if it's meant for him to evolve and come with me on this journey, and then have this amazing connection in that area of our life, in that realm, and that mindset, then amazing. But if not, then that only means that it's this or something better. And getting to that point of peace and surrender is such a huge part as well.
Yeah. And then you may not have a partner who moves in the direction that you are with learning these things and meditating. However, you can have a partner that supports you and loves you for who you are and how you're, migrating into more closer to your own soul. It's not going to change who you are. It actually makes you better. It makes you more in alignment with your soul.
Yeah.
And then that can be extremely attractive to a partner, because then you're living more in truth and transparency and gratitude and knowing, and all the things that are attractive to anybody in a relationship.
I love that point, actually. Would you dig into that just a little bit more? Because I love, I guess, describing and distinctifying the difference between, because this comes up a lot with clients going through the same thing as well. The distinction between someone growing with you and going on the same journey, and then someone choosing their own journey, choosing their own path, and maybe they won't come with you. And that is maybe their destined path to be a 3D being in this way, but they're able to
Mhm.
appreciate you and see you and support you in all the same.
Mhm. Yeah, yeah. So, it's funny, you'll get some relationships where they're saying, "I don't change. I just want it to be like it is." But we're changing every day. That's the thing. We're always changing. We're learning, we're growing, we're changing. And so you can't stop the growth. If you do, you're going to get that cosmic 2x4, and that's not going to look too well, right? When you do have someone who is evolving into a more spiritually connected individual, there is going to be love in that relationship. May it be forever or for just a time, right? And so when there is that true love, that you're supporting yourself to be a better person, to be more aligned with what your soul is calling for. So when you're in that perfect alignment, and that there is deeper love connected between you and your partner is going to want you to be happy in that space. Unless you start dragging them, then they can be resentful or resistant of that, because it may not be, they may be more analytical or scientifically driven. And they're like, I just did a podcast where the woman, and I loved her. She started with, got you on here, but I may not necessarily believe what you're doing. And I'm like, yes, thank you for sharing the truth. And that was okay. I said, yes. I said, so now let me show you, let me tell you, let me help you understand what this looks like. And then, so I'm not here to drag you along. I'm here to spark your curiosity. And so when you're evolving, you are truly sparking a curiosity. May it be with your children, because they're going to like want to hug trees and talk to critters and things like that when they're open. And then you have a partner who loves you, sees that you're more positive, sees that you're supporting the family, and being in alignment with happiness, right? And may it be essential oils or whatever, and that's okay. You're learning and you're growing with all of these other instruments around you, and he can still love you because you haven't changed. You've become more in alignment with your soul. It's the difference between changing and then being in alignment. So someone can say, well, I am changing as I'm growing, but the alignment is perfect with what you say you want, right? So some people can say, I want $1 million in the bank. What they're really wanting is the support of the abundance around them. When you have that, it could be $100,000 and it supports what they need or want to grow with, right? But it can still feel like $1 million because you're in alignment of that support, of knowing something's there. If you get a flat tire, it's replaced immediately. Those kind of things, of feeling that you have the support of that around you. But it's not just the $1 million. It's the feeling that comes with it, right? So I
Right.
tell people, have the feeling first, then you become a magnet to the $1 million. And everyone will just go, oh, yes, I'm worth $1 million. And then you say, well, I have this program that's worth 3,000. Oh, that's too expensive. Well, then you don't have the value of $1 million. You have to feel into the program. Will it support you? Will it get to the end result of what you're looking for? Do you resonate with the person who's created that
Yeah.
program? Yeah.
Is it worth the investment? Yeah. Actually, that was That was a shift for me. I don't know if I mean for my listeners, because we talk about this all the time, the being and the feeling to see it of the feeling of abundance. And I talk about this a lot with my clients when we get into money mindset and attracting in new clients and attracting in new levels of income in their businesses, etc. And it's like how and it's really hard to do that when you got $0 in the bank and you're really struggling and those clients aren't coming in. And so I often talk about tapping into the frequency of abundance. Abundance is love, abundance is wealth, abundance is health, abundance is money, but that frequency of abundance is abundance of actual money. So where are other ways in your life and places in your life that you can appreciate the abundance that you have? I have an abundant of health. I have an abundant of, you know, time freedom. I have abundant of love with my family, etc. And tapping into that feeling of, like you said, unlimited support. But I've never heard it put in that way as far as do you have that unlimited support from a partner like this? And that really was a shift, actually. I love that perspective because it's essentially what it is the same
Mhm.
mindset as well.
Mhm. Mhm. So, I've been really diving deep in this whole situation about thought, creation, manifestation, since I am a master manifester. But for me, it is easier. I was struck by a car when I was 8 and magical things happened. I was manifesting back then and didn't even know it. Like it was seriously major difference between myself and my two siblings. The the bottom line is when you remember I said when, the relationship and he tilted instantaneously in another direction and I said, hold on, hold on. I had to move through the energy, get through that, meaning the our anger, frustration, all of that other stuff. And then saying, okay, wait a minute, let's go back frame by frame on what I did so that I could determine where I shifted the energy. Right. And I did. I totally determined it. That's powerful, but rare. Okay. When you are trying to manifest, so let's talk about abundance. When you're trying to live in the mindset of abundance, you must go back to determine the weaknesses in your childhood wrapped around incoming abundance, right? And so let's say, and these are the exact things that my clients told me through the years that I can recall that were significant. But significant for the child. As an adult, it's not. So, because, we have the history of, the value of something, how hard we have to work, what we create, how we have to shift and change, where a child's like, just give it to me. So, when you reflect back, and let's say you have grandparents you may visit, once a month, or you spend the summer with them. Let's say grandpa made a business decision and it wasn't a good one, and he lost the farm and he lost his car and he had to move in with his children, which you're the child and his children are your mom or your dad. So now you have grandma and granddad living with you and everybody's quiet, but it's quiet at the table and you can hear between the walls and you can hear them talking about, well, we're going to have to pay for grandpa to blah, 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 because there's no money. And so you'll get bits and pieces as a child, and the child now is putting the story together on their own. Like, oh, grandpa, you know, gave somebody all this money and they lost their house. Well, I can't give money now, right? Or grandpa made a decision and then grandma got mad and then he lost the house. Well, I can't get mad because I'm the girl. Grandma got mad because that's probably what caused it. Child's thinking that. So there's so many scenarios wrapped around that because it's your feeling and what you are interpreting it. Some can't remember because you could be 5 or 7 or even 3 years old. However, when you go back to think, how was money being handled, talked about, and did we live where I have a client who his dad bought everything used. And so now money is scarce and you can only buy it used. My parents and grandparents said, we have no credit cards and you have to pay everything with cash. So then what my sister and I did, we would save, 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 wanted to buy a new washing machine, car, whatever. By the time we went to have just enough money, something else would happen and all that money would be shifted over there and we would have to buy a used car, used washing machine. It happened all the time until I finally put a kibosh. It was at the beginning of my spiritual journey. I said, this is not happening anymore. I'm buying a car. I bought a brand new one, but I'm not living out of my means. So I'm not telling everybody go max out everything. That's not the case. I'm still living in my means, but I didn't have to keep save, 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 save to pay all of it in cash. I had to shift the dynamic of what was put upon me from one generation, my parents, second generation, my grandparents, right? So I had to find the weaknesses within how money was being shifted in and around my direct caregivers and then indirect caregivers, grandparents. I spent every Saturday, all my childhood going to my dad's mom and dad, my grandparents, paternal. And I had to recall how were they living, and everything. And they had a new car, but then grandpa fixed everything in the house. And, so I had to see and remember all that. So take the time, stop. And really, if you're dedicating yourself to manifesting great adventures and more abundance, get out of the fear, but go back to thinking, what were the dynamics directly and indirectly? And even maybe a third direction could be, uncles and nieces and nephews, that how were they handling the money? And then shifting away from that, shifting the fear out, shifting the dynamics of how you're interpreting it and what you think. Because when you use the word expensive, quote unquote, that what you spend and what I spend could be completely the opposite directions, right? So it's what you created and what your so-called reality is about what you think expensive is. That's just a label.
100%. And it totally, like you said, comes back to that um, mindset of what you're considering what's too expensive and what's not, based off of your childhood and based off of your preconditioning and whether it has value or not value. And like you said, and this often I see all the time with clients, it's if you were accustomed to always buying used. I was also grew up in a similar situation. We were crafters and DIYers and, sew your own clothes and find the furniture on the side of the road and sand it down and repaint it and make it new, like it was a very different we were thrift shoppers and, Goodwill was awesome and but let me just be very clear. I do love a really good vintage shop and thrift shopping too. It could be really fun, but it's that mindset of, again, like you said, always buying used. But even though it's such a subconscious level, it's still found a way to manifest in your life to where you would continue to
Yes.
have to buy used things or DIY things, etc., etc. I love this. It's great. Um, I wanted to also talk about this one side, which had come up in my relationship as well. And it's I'm a projector, human design projector. And for those of you who know what human design is, amazing. And if you don't, you can definitely go find your chart online. It has a lot about your personality traits as far as how you work and how you function and how you are in relation to others as well and relationships. Based off of astrology, birthday, and location. But I'm a human design projector, which means for me, it's a really big, almost love language of mine in all relationships to be validated and to be seen. And so the sense of, as we're talking about things that come up from your childhood and preconditioned things from your past, it's such a big thing. I guess I was never really validated as a child. And so it's something that does rear its head in a lot of relationships going forward. And it's something that I found the most triggering, so to say, as this 5D to 3D consciousness relationships have continued to evolve. And it's almost like you feel like you can't that you aren't seen all the way, I guess, by your partner who doesn't get it because they're not in it or they haven't dove into the concepts and the mindset of these kinds of levels of consciousness, so to say. Um, But on the other side, I've also realized that the need to be validated, I guess, so to say, is something that's also my own thing. Um,
Mhm.
but what would you say for, I guess, the spiritual one who's going through the spiritual awakening as far as needing to feel seen as they're
Mhm.
going through these things? Because I often, it's like, I just want to share, but I don't feel like he'll get it.
Mhm.
So there's no point in sharing.
Mhm. Mhm. Yeah, yeah, yeah. So, have you ever read that book, The Five Love Languages?
Yes, yes, love.
Yeah, that's a really great book for couples to read because you can't force a giver into not giving. You can't force, a someone who's seeking compliments who because it makes them feel good that they're
Mm,
being seen. You can't force them into just accepting it without feeling like they're being seen, right? So, understanding your partner in their love language, I tell people mine is truth and transparency. Because truly that's what I do for a living, so I need to have that. And so it's shifted over time, and yes, your love language can shift. But when you are someone that's in service and your partner keeps giving you gifts and you're like, that's nice, but can't we just go to a homeless shelter and feed some animals or something like that, And the partner doesn't understand, like I'm giving you these things. And so that's why it's really important to talk about the fulfillment of who you are in order for your partner to understand why you do what you do. And so it's simply okay. Oh, she really likes compliments. And when your partner comes in from work, hey, babe, oh, you look so good, even though you're in pajamas. It's okay. You always look good. That's why I love you. It's most interesting. My partner, he knows that I like the finer things in life because I've worked really hard to get here. And so he wanted to go to this event and the accommodations were a little different. And so and so without him telling me, but he told me after the fact, he wrote them an email and said, my partner has her tastes are quite different. So can you tell me a little more higher end accommodations? And when he told me that, I laughed because he wasn't trying to force me into something, even though I would go, even though I would be like,
mm.
okay. He wanted me to be comfortable into what I am comfortable in.
Yeah.
So when you have that, it's your partner thinking about, I'm not trying to force her into this. And he knows that I would just kind of do my best, but he's thinking ahead. And so when you get that, it's like that true connection of going, they're really thinking about how you are, how you can respond, how they can respond, how you're going to receive it, and it's so simple. It truly is simple when you know your love language. So I totally recommend if you don't want to give it to your partner, read it for yourself because now you're going to understand your partner's love language and you can now feed onto that and bring that love closer together because it really is simple.
Yeah, which I'll be honest, we in the beginning, way back when we were in actual couples therapy right around the time my son was born years ago. And the first thing we found out is that our love languages are complete opposite. And turns out neither of us are feeding into any of them, vice and
Ah,
versa.
wow.
And that was a
Wow.
huge wake up call for sure. So the love languages thing is also super huge. I will say the other side of it also is mirroring it back to myself, like what's my part in this again? And that continues to be something that just comes up for me over and over again in my relationship as it's two people. It continues to come back to be like, all right, where's my mirror in this? And for me,
Yeah.
even most recently, it was an aha moment of like, I it's my own fear of visibility and my own
Yeah.
fear of being seen as my most true authentic self as I am rediscovering these things about myself in my own spiritual journey. And everything that I am rediscovering about myself, so to say, because when you do go through this spiritual journey, you really are just going back to your true self rather than growing into
That's
somebody
right.
else.
Yeah,
And
complete alignment with your soul.
yeah, and it's more about me getting comfortable with showing him these new true colors and fear of judgment and fear of, because it is so different than who I have been the last 10 years of our marriage, so to say, and whether that will
Yeah.
be accepted and loved all the same and that kind of thing. So that was a huge part as
Yeah.
well.
Yeah. So that's very interesting when you said as you're evolving, that you didn't know your love language back then. But keep in mind, as I mentioned, it can shift because once you realize that, validation is one thing, but then quality time might be you really are getting into the groove of being with him. He's so attentive and you have so much fun that now quality time turns into your love language, and you need to share that as well. You need to be open. Oh, I just got a flash. I love flashes because it really tells me I need to speak upon it. At the beginning of my relationship with my partner, I was learning to grow with him and what his, ideas of how he responds with stuff. And something came upon me, and I love that. And I started telling him, I would start with, "Today I love you because." And what I would do is like, gosh, she's so accepting about me, everything. And it just was when I said, man, this is hard on me. And so I don't, how does he, he is just like, this is accepting. So I wanted him to know that I noticed that.
Mm.
So it started with that. It was going through a bunch of dental work. And I said, I love you today because you're so accepting of me. Like, you're really amazing. And then I would do it I still do it, but every day I'd say, I love you today because, and then I would see how he was interacting, but I'm not doing it because he was needing validation. I was doing it because I wanted him to see what the world was seeing and how he's projecting on the world, because I am the world, you know? And so when he started receiving it, it took him a couple weeks and he started doing the same in return with me.
Wow.
Yeah. So it's very profound. And take it. All my clients, when I start telling them, when we start talking about relationships, own this.
Yeah.
So start it today. I love you because, and change it every time. Cause then it gets boring when you're saying, I love you because you're generous. I love you because you're
Right.
generous. They're like, okay, I heard you, honey. But something as simple as I love you, how you come into the door and you're not projecting the world at work on us,
Hmm.
or I love you, and so get to really seeing, because now that makes you more present in seeing him beyond his actions, right? Meaning how is his soul arriving with the world, and it's just so transformative being able to show them what the world is seeing in them. People want to know. I mean, I'd like to know how the world sees me,
Yeah, I've always
when you have your partner.
I've always thought
Yes.
that. I was like, I would love to just be a fly on the wall or someone else's eyes and someone else's perspective, because I'm sure we would all get a really nice big ego boost. Because
Well, it feels good.
we're our worst critics. We're the ones that are so hard on ourselves. We're the ones
Yes.
that have the self-doubt and the limiting
Yes.
beliefs for nothing, that put these limitations on ourselves. Whereas someone else is, who knows, admiring us from behind their phone, on the other side of Instagram, and you have no idea whether they're considering, to work with you
Yes.
or not, or inspired or not, and, etc. It's always us. I just want to love this idea that you just said about your love language is evolving into becoming your same as your partner's, because I had never considered that. Again, another shift for me today. Um, of like, because my love languages are mine and his are his, that had always just been in my head for some reason. But whereas if you were to evolve together and learn to appreciate these things together and have your
Mhm.
love languages end up being the same as each other, and maybe not all of them, but just that example.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
love that notion as well. So
Yeah.
amazing. I want to talk because a lot of the conversation so far has been about how we as the 5D conscious spiritual beings want to bring our 3D conscious uh partners with us. Now, what if we are going to flip the script, and how is us having a 5D, being a 5D spiritual being, having a more 3D partner, balancing or some way? Because we are, even though we are these very highly spiritual beings, we are living a human experience on earth in the 3D world, where the most of the world is still operating on a very 3D format. And what does that look like, and where is the middle ground and the happy medium, etc.?
Yeah. Well, we touched bases with it just a little bit about how when love is in existence between the two partners, that if one partner in 3D is kind of sitting back going, okay, let me see this, they may need the time to just watch how you're evolving, how you're supporting yourself and the family with this evolution. And that partner may never come up to that space, but can still love you just the same in the moments that you want to share about essential oil or something. It's information. It's at the table. She loves it. I love her. Good for her.
Right. And
You
I
know?
guess you're saying it just requires them to have that open mindset to be able to be there and
Yes.
supportive, which is the difference.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Because the struggles occur when one is forcing the other into what they think it should turn into, meaning and I've had seen couples actually get divorces over this exact topic
Yeah.
because the wife is journaling and going to these retreats and, and meditating and come on, honey, let's meditate together. No, I have to mow the yard. And so he's living, and I'm just going to say he, because we're women here talking, but he's out there mowing the yard and she's meditating, and he comes in, oh my God, let me tell you about my meditation, honey. Hold on. I got to go fix the tractor or whatever he's got to do next. And you're like, damn, he doesn't have the time for me. Well, you get so excited about what you're seeing in your meditations and how you're manifesting things. And he's still trying to keep the household going on on his projects or what he wants to do. But then there's others where they're forcing, come on, no, I don't want you to do this. Come and meditate or come to this retreat. And it's like, if the partner is into, let's say, NASCAR and you really aren't, so most of the time the partner that doesn't want to will say, go ahead, babes, just go have a good time, hang out with your bros and come on back. But if he really wants you to go, we usually go, okay, I'll go. And we just want to be with them, so we're okay with just hanging out and being with them. So you have to find the balance, but you cannot force the other into migrating into the beliefs that you have. That soul could take a long time or no time at all, but still should love you unless you're forcing or completely changing into like, well, who is that woman? She's not the same. And, you know, and and then the changes, the dynamic seems to be different where he's pulling away and she's already started to pull away because her beliefs are over here, you know?
So would you say, I mean, and again, speaking from experience, would you say, because there's a lot of things of like, I have my interests and he has his interests, and we're completely fine and at peace with doing them separately. But there comes a time where it's almost like you would like for them to have some kind of interest in also what you're doing. But I guess there's also a medium ground of maybe there's something else completely separate. Like he doesn't necessarily have to come and meditate with you, and you don't necessarily have to go to NASCAR with him, but maybe there's
Right,
something else that you guys do consider your thing
right,
together.
right. So I mentioned one, I love you today
Yeah.
because,
Yeah.
right? That's bringing everybody to the present state. Both parties always love that.
Yeah.
That's a plus, plus, plus. But there are these common, simple techniques that I'm sharing that can bring that love to both 3D and 5D people, right? Without forcing the other one into it. So, honey, let's go take a walk, connecting to Mother Earth. You can keep your shoes off, he can keep his shoes on, chatting about not work, but how are you feeling about what's going on in the world today? I know we don't want to go into politics or anything negative, but, and you can even say, let's keep it positive. What is it that you liked about today? So if he can't find anything or she can't find anything that's positive, then you can say, you know, the most positive thing that I saw right now is that we're being together. So being able to bring that present moment, when we're living in gratitude, when you'll hear people say, just live in gratitude. The most 3D people will say, oh, she gave me a card for my birthday. Or, oh, we went out to dinner on Mother's Day. What about the walls that are protecting you from the environment, or the cat that you have that purrs, and all of these beautiful things, or child laughing in another room, these most amazing opportunities are every second of the day. But because we're living in chaos or goals or, end results of hurry, 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 we're missing everything between A and Z, all the juicy stuff in the middle. And so we have to live more in the present moment of gratitude. And then we can help our partner to be to be more present, to be more positive, to help them see things differently. Because when they're more positive, it lifts them. And what will end up happening is they'll go to work and come back and say, damn, man, that Thomas, he is so negative. Then you're doing something, because now they're seeing in the presence of what's negative and positive and how they can see it,
They
right?
start to see the difference. Yeah.
Yes, yes, yes. And you keep at it. Your consistency is stable. That's what others around you want, the stable consistency. So being positive, holding the space, not like blasting off. If you get triggered, take a breath. Don't respond. If you feel that tweak, that like screw in the back, just go, okay, hold on. Let me just breathe through it. Visualize roots coming out of the bottom of your feet. Just take breaths until you feel like you can have a conversation without going you, because that's all judgment. Even though you may be hearing it, you don't have to respond with it.
Mm-hmm.
You can clearly say, and you'll hear many clients, he's not hearing me, she's not listening. We're all listening, every single one of us. We all hear everything. It's the response that creates that comment. He or she is not listening. Oh, they are.
Yeah. I've been guilty of that one too myself. It's like you think, well, things get heated in the moment. Of course, something comes out and you think that they haven't heard anything that you said, but then later on down the road, you start to see signs, like you said, of them noticing the difference. Like they actually heard way more than you give them credit for, and or that you think they actually absorbed into their subconscious level. And I'm actually I'm starting to write my first book, and
Congrats.
it's one of the chapters, it's called How We Lead. And one of the things is about how we lead as women and the spiritual, conscious, evolving women in our relationships and in our lives. And one of the biggest things to that point was, even when you start to focus on yourself and you start to evolve on yourself and you start to really hold that space for yourself and you do the evolution of yourself, whether, and again, even through fights or conversations that weren't fights and all the above, and your partner of I guess the early ages of you trying to drag your partner along before you realize that that's not the solution.
Yes.
Once you kind of let go and start to focus on yourself, and when I let go and started to focus on myself and my own energy, he inevitably started to change anyways. And our marriage already
Mm-hmm.
started to have massive evolution and massive improvement and massive change, even without having the actual conversation or actually
Mm-hmm.
drilling the Joe Dispenza
Yes.
notions into his head. Or, it's because we
Yes.
are all inevitably mirrors in our relationships too. And the energy ends up, you know, infusing into our partner's subconscious level, whether they like it or not.
Yes. Yes. Yes.
But even to the point of also what you said earlier, of like me doing my own work and evolving made me become my higher self, and I'm happier at home, and I'm leading the way I
Yeah.
lead at home and in my relationship and in my family life, changes the energy all around me. And he sees that I'm happy and
Yes.
I'm no longer burnt out and I'm no longer resentful about my job and I'm no longer resentful about him or there's just so much things that it ends up just inevitably, I guess, trickling effect into as well.
Yes. Yes.
I love that part.
Yeah, but bringing them more present, well, when you're more
Yeah.
present and you're shifting and changing, like you just shared, allows them to be more present. I got a flash while you were talking there, and yesterday everybody was here, and it was the backyard, and we were sharing, and my partner, who we're working through things, but he's still here, and he said something that was at the very beginning of our relationship that I shared with him, but so minor that I'm like, I caught it. Again, being present, I caught it and I looked at him and I said, "You remembered." But it was so small that, and most people would just, okay, he's just repeating what I said. No, it takes someone to be present in all your conversations, to grab all the little things and then bring it forward to another moment. That's huge. And even though we cannot take these things for granted, a lot of us are doing that. And so I stopped in that moment and I smiled and I said, "You remembered." And he said, "Of course." But the thing is, you cannot take it for granted, because those moments of being able to bring up that, "Oh my gosh, you really were present and listening." And yes, he says he is, but the world, remember I said, "I love you," because it's the same thing. It's another way of showing that you caught it, you're grateful, he remembered, he's thinking, he's absorbing the things you're talking about. Now, if it doesn't happen, that's okay too. But there's going to be these moments, grab them, be grateful for them. It humbleizes you to think, "Oh my gosh, wow, that's awesome." And to know that if you do have some weaknesses, those little moments can be turned into a strength by saying, "Thank you. Oh my gosh." It was huge. He had this great big smile. But it's so important that I hope that these, I mean, they are so simple. This whole spiritual journey is simple. We just make it hard.
Oh, so true. It's so true. We always make it harder than it needs to be.
I know.
I've loved everything that
Yeah.
we've had in this conversation. It's really been so amazing. And I've loved all of these amazing, good practices that you've given us so far. And before we wrap up, I love you because and the staying in your present. Are there any
Thanks.
other intuitive practices that you would recommend to us and to the listeners of for couples who are going through this and navigating the evolution of their
Okay.
relationship?
Yep. Okay, so I'm going to show you exactly, because you and I are a couple right now.
Okay.
I love you today because you opened the doors to allow me to come and share tidbits into the world. You had to trust me and you had to trust yourself to allow me to come to your world. So thank you so much for being present for me and allowing me to do that. And then
Mm.
also, you are so fantastic. I love your glasses. I love your smile. And I love the way you present to the world. I think that's so great and so generous that you do that for us. You made me feel so welcomed, and I'm sure all your audience feels the same way.
Mm.
Yes, I bet you're a great mama too. Because when you're
Oh,
present for the world, you're present for your child. So I did all of that
yeah.
because it is sincere. And I'm saying it because that's exactly how girlfriends, partners, intimate, platonic, coworkers can really, you're present,
Mm.
because I don't know your child. I just met you, in this moment. But the thing is that the way you are projecting and you're present and you're listening and you're thinking about your past podcasts and how this one can help, and thanking me, we know that you're going to be the same with your children or your child and your husband. And so in that space, I want to say thank you. And I want your husband to know that, he's lucky. And so I'm sure you feel lucky with him involved as well. But to be in that space, and how you are projecting to the world.
Yeah.
So the things that I said about I love you because
Yeah.
it's showing, because you are somebody, everybody listening, you are somebody that when you are highlighting how someone else is projecting to the world, it allows them to even pour out more to it and then turn around and pour it into you.
Mm,
So thank you.
I love that. Be the mirror for what you want. Love it. Well, Terry, thank you so, so much. I have full body chills of confirmation and love, and my heart is so full. This is one of the best episodes I've recorded so far. It was truly a joy to have you.
Mm.
Would you
Ah,
tell the audience how they can contact you and find you? I will, of course, put everything in the show notes.
yes, thank you so much. So you can find me on my website. It is terriechristine.com. It is my name. Also on TikTok, I do celebrity readings by pictures. There are blueprints of your energy in a picture. I've done readings through pictures, so people can present their potential partners, current partners. I can read their energy from that and tell you what's going on. I'm on Instagram and Facebook, Terrie Christine 333. So I have a lot of um, resources, excuse me, that you can find on my website. But and then my book, here it is, The Secret Power of You. You can find it on Amazon, and all those reviews are real. Most of them are my clients who bought them, and I call it the tool for success. There's tips and tricks in there to help you see your limiting beliefs and how to shift them. This is easy, and I got the downloads, as you hear the spiritual people say. And I'm like, this is so easy. I'm going to put it in a book. So I did that for everybody to enjoy. And also, I do have a private studio in Bethesda, Maryland. It's in the Metro DC area. I just had somebody contact me from another podcast, and she goes, "Oh my gosh! As soon as you said you were, in Bethesda, so I wanted to make sure I tell people." And I have people flying to see me, so you don't have to be in Maryland, girls, guys, everybody. They fly, they drive, and you can see me. And I also do remote work. So again, thank you. I'm very humble and grateful for this experience.
I love it. Thank you so much, Terry. And we're sending you guys so much love. Thank you for joining us on this episode, and we'll see you all next time. Thank you so much for joining. And if you enjoyed today's episode, I would be so honored if you would subscribe, hit the 5 stars, leave me a review, and drop a little comment on how this episode has inspired you in some way. If this resonated with you, I love connecting and seeing your journey. Please take a screenshot of this episode and tag me and my guests on Instagram. If you're ready to level up your life and business in a big way, feel free to contact me directly on Instagram or an email to learn more on how we can work together through elevated mentorship. If you're interested in being a guest on my podcast, please contact me via email posted in the show notes. I'm sending you guys so much love. Keep elevating your frequency and showing up as your most elevated self each and every day. Remember, you are powerful and you are worthy of having it all. I will see you all next time.